That's a sound that mahjong players will instantly recognize. It's the shuffling of the tiles in between rounds of a game. And for legions of mahjong players, it's the most exciting time of the year because in the next week or two, the new 2022 version of the official playing card rules will be arriving from the National Mah Jongg League headquarters in the United States. You have to use it instead of last year's combinations of the tiles and the suits and seasons and winds and dragons permitted to be used in games so you can win and call out Maj. Okay, full disclosure here, I play Maj. I am very bad at it. And for the past 2 years during the pandemic, I hardly played at all with my friends because nobody was getting together inside anybody's home. I did play once in Florida just about 2 weeks ago, and I wore a mask. For the thousands of mahjong fans, the pandemic has had a big impact on how they play or don't, and how the Maj community in Jewish Canada has adapted.
If everyone else around me wants to play with a mask, then I guess that's the way we're going to go, because it's fun to play and it's fun to be with friends and to be with people. And after 2 years, we need to get used to this because it's a virus and it's not going away. So we just have to take a deep breath and continue to play if we feel comfortable.
I'm Ellen Basner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, March the 30th, 2022. Welcome to the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. Before we get to the Maj story, we need to pivot to the news out of Israel. Jewish groups in Canada are reacting with shock after the latest terrorist attacks in Israel Tuesday killed another 5 people in the Bnei Brak area. One of the victims was the Israeli policeman, an Israeli Christian Arab who was able to shoot and kill the Palestinian terrorist. That brings the total dead this past week to 11. Israel's ambassador to Canada, Ronen Hoffman, tweeted his condolences to the families of the victims. He said, "The state of Israel is strong and resilient and will fight terrorism with all its might and will win." The Abraham Global Peace Initiative issued a statement blaming civil society groups, including the United Nations, for repeatedly inciting false narratives that Israel is an apartheid society, which the NGO says leads to extremism and hostility. Michal Kotler-Wunsch, the former Israeli Knesset member with deep Canadian roots, says the latest terror attacks make it even more crucial that countries adopt the IRA definition of anti-Semitism in order to stop online hate. CIJA, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, said they are horrified by the 3 terrorist attacks in 1 week. And B'nai B'rith Canada says their memories should serve as a blessing. Stay tuned for more coverage on this story in the coming days. Shirley Hanick is a mahjong teacher from Toronto and founder of Maj in the Garage. She also collects vintage mahjong sets, and she sells new cards every year to fundraise for her favorite charity, which is Baycrest Hospital. She's with her friend in Florida this month, Carol Seidman, who's also from Toronto. Meanwhile, Aviva Reinitz teaches Maj in Montreal and Florida. She was able to play this winter in Florida, and she donates her earnings to a Montreal Children's Hospital. They all join me now to preview the arrival of the 2022 Maj cards and discuss why nobody knows if Maj will go back to normal this spring because of the latest variant of COVID virus that's arrived. Shirley and Carol are at the Winmore community in Coconut Creek, Florida, and Aviva joins from Montreal. Do you feel at all that the arrival of this new mahjong card may symbolize or herald in a renewed sort of return to the old way where people were able to play together in person? Carol, you want to start?
Sure. I think that we were going in that direction. So many of my friends would not get together unless it was outdoors, and that became very difficult, although Shirley did come up with a very creative solution, which she can talk about. But we were playing online, and sometimes we would play online with each other and sometimes with robots. That's really been the way to play. Except here in Florida, because we can play outdoors, we have been playing particularly on Shabbat afternoons with no money, but there have been at least 2 tables at our pool every Shabbat at 2 o'clock. And we get random people. It's just drop in, play as long as you want, and that's the way we've been going. But looking forward to spring, as you mentioned, and going back up north, With this new variant that is so contagious, we were going to be getting together again, but I'm not sure, depending on what rolls out in the next 10 days or 2 weeks. With Passover, I think everything will just be on hold. Mm-hmm. So I think we'll have a very good idea after the Chag as to whether or not we're going to be playing face-to-face, which I hope we will be, or back online.
And you were mentioning the Shirley's Maj in the garage. So I think that's a great name. But how did it roll out, and how many people did you teach that?
What we were doing up to that point was we were playing on a site called mahjong.net, which offered you 8 free games a day. But while we were doing that, we were also on WhatsApp or FaceTime so that we could sit and talk to each other at the same time. So we each had 2 devices beside us. When we felt comfortable enough, and when the temperature warmed up, I set up the table in the garage, and people started, my girls started coming. And that way we were able to see each other because it had been such a long time.
And what about Aviva, pandemic Maj? What did it look like for you?
Well, I also played on realmahjong.com. And I was playing with the robots, and then I decided to ask my friends that played with me when we played in the outdoors in the summertime, because a lot were afraid to play indoors. Some that were more nervous playing outside. A lot of times were wearing masks because they had some issues, so they were very nervous and stressed. So we came more indoors, and we played with House Party. So we were online also speaking while we were playing. And but we decided to come back to play indoors last year, and still people were very nervous. So we had all these like front door, back door. I mean, you needed like a winter coat on because it was so cold in their houses because they were so nervous of the variants that were going on. But since I was in Florida and I had the opportunity to play Ellen with you and with your sister and then another few other people, we got to play indoors because we were more comfortable to be indoors in Florida. And
I wore a mask because I was staying with my older mother, and and we've all had COVID, so we were like feeling a bit better. How has the pandemic changed your enjoyment of and the groups that you play with, actual enjoyment?
Well, I felt that the past 2 years, it was really not as fun as it was before, because I did also play for in a lot of tournaments here that was offered in some synagogues. It was offered in some country clubs, golf tournaments, and they had mahjong, bridge, and that was fun to play for different associations to make some money for Hadassah, for Maimonides, for there was a Hillsdale, there was a golf tournament for another organization. So there you got some door prizes, and you got to have lunch with other people that were playing bridge and mahjong, and that was like more fun than what's been going on.
Do you notice whether people have dropped out of playing mahjong because during the last 2 years, or switched different games maybe?
I see a change, and what I've been noticing is when Northerners come down and they're used to having nothing going on because of the fear factor, and they see because we have the ability of being outdoors, we've had some people just observing us, particularly on Shabbat afternoon, saying, when I come back next year, please teach me. I really want to be part of this. So I think that that's been a change because they're kind of starving for that human interaction because, there's only so much intimacy you have over Zoom and doing your own walking. So I think that that's been a really positive change. I also think the other change is that people have been introduced to other games. And I certainly, through this process, have been introduced to canasta. We have bridge players who are switching, but it's all because we have the great privilege and advantage of being outdoors here. So I would say if there are people listening and thinking, it's not for me, it was for my mother or my grandmother, to look at your life and whatever it is that you're going to do, that we all, as busy women, deserve to play sometimes. And I would think that this is a great game to learn how to play.
Aviva, I saw you nodding about that. Let's jump in, please.
Well, it's funny because my sister has a mahjong game of her mother-in-law. And so on the tiles, you could see that it's all like washed out and everything. And it has like nail polish written Joker on it, or it has the flowers has a picture of a flower with nail polish. And when you open the box of the mahjong tiles, it smells like mothballs. But so many people like have their mother's mahjong set or their grandmother's mahjong set, and how it's like it brings so much comfort to everyone, even though the mothballs smell when you open it. But I remember my mother playing with her mother's set. You think about that compared to when you buy these new mahjong sets, they don't have the same meaning, you know. But you hope one day that you'll be passing it on to your kids to see, you know, because you hear them, they say, one bam, one bird, you know, like they've heard it as we've been playing. But I felt also this year, well, I learned 2 years ago, right before the pandemic, to play canasta. And I didn't continue because the people that I played with stopped playing. So that's like another endeavor to continue to learn to play mahjong. I know how to play bridge, but bridge takes more time and there's a lot of conventions and it's more concentration. And I feel sometimes with the mahjong, you concentrate, but it's not as difficult I find it more difficult with the cards.
So I know that we're coming to the end of time, but I wanted to ask you, how does the process work when they come up with new cards? Is there like this little wizard that sits there with a bunch of women and they like decide how they're going to make their lives difficult for the new people next year? Because we just finished learning this year's card. Like, do you know how the process works?
Let me tell you that the woman here that I play with, she's also responsible for part of the creation of the card. And they spend months and months and months playing the card, making sure that it will work if you play by the rules and not if you play this game called Atomic. They want to make, or 14 tiles.
National Mah Jongg League only endorses people who play mahjong starting with 13 tiles each. So that's what she was referring to. And we're very pro National Mah Jongg League because anywhere you go in the world, if you want to play mahjong, whether you're on a cruise ship or you're just traveling, how wonderful that you could sit at someone's table and you're all playing with the same rules.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. Integrity, community, quality, and customer care. Today's listener shout-out goes to Judy Cohen of Toronto. She's a Holocaust survivor who speaks regularly about her experiences, and Judy sends us lots of important feedback, especially about the recent Anne Frank book about who betrayed the family to the Nazis. We've been covering it on the CJN. Meanwhile, if you want to buy a Maj card or you want to get in touch with any of the teachers that we just interviewed, send me an email or find me on Facebook or Instagram and I'll connect you. My email is ebessner with 2 S's @thecjn.ca. And also, why not send us your Maj experiences? Did you play online? Did you change to canasta? Are you going to be playing outside in the spring? Let me know. ebessner @thecjn.ca.